Okay, let's pick it up. We're going to start rowing again, and ready to row and row. So outside hands underneath, cupping the oars. That's it, lovely. Go on, Richard and Charlie, have a go at that feathery malarkey. Just see if you can. Right, we've got a bit of water room here, so we're going to do our raise oars practice, especially for the reflections event, where we will have to do a salute. Easy oars, everybody. You need to get the handle of the oar into the foot, which it's kind of like naturally going to sit into. So the handle of the oar goes down onto the ground, onto the planks. Your other hand picks up the oar halfway along it and you lever it into position, but you want to have all the blades facing the same way. So on the count of 3, 2, 1, salute oars. Beautiful! That looked really good. Racing boat, Magwitch. So she's made out of wood, and in gig racing, all the racing boats are made to the same design. So in order to race, we have to have a wooden boat. So we crowdfunded for this boat earlier this year. So we're very proud of her. She's called Magwitch because of the link with Dickens and the Thames. So Magwitch coming out of the marshes. In gig racing, you have 6 rowers. You have a coxswain. The tradition of gig racing came out of gig rowing in the West Country, where the different villages and islands used to race in the 19th century, used to race their crew, their pilot out to get the pilot onto the big ships coming up the channel. So the fastest crew got the place, got the prize of the money for the pilotage. So that's where it sort of grew from. And the last sort of 30 years, it's become quite a big competitive sport. We've developed through the pandemic, and we're now 30 members, which is still quite a small club, but we're growing. We welcome everybody from our community from 18 to 88. And we train on the River Thames. We have social rows, and we also race. So we've started racing this year in Cornish pilot gig regattas and races, which is interestingly challenging and fun.
I never realised how inclusive rowing is until I joined the crew here, and everybody is so open and welcoming and really boosted my confidence. It's really good for my mental health, helping me cope with depression, helping me cope with anxiety and social isolation. You become part of a crew, part of a community. And it's affordable, it's accessible, it comes across as something that's expensive, but it's not. And I think that's why we need to break down this image and perception of rowing as a sport. As a South Asian girl, I never learned how to swim. It would never have been a dream to get in a boat. It wasn't even a dream that I could see myself doing that. Because it's made such a transformation for myself. It's given me so much self-belief, confidence, and conviction in my own strength and power as a South Asian woman, that I really want to share what it's done for me with other women of colour in particular, but young people of colour as well, who never get the opportunity to be in a boat on the river, because it's not even a dream that we have access to.
One day I was painting around the stern, and I suddenly spotted that somebody with a centre punch had created this number saying 2111, and you could barely make it out, but just as I painted over these little indentations, I suddenly thought, oh my goodness, look, there's this number, and that is her service number. We then called her Lindsay 2111.
I'm sure there are many factors in order to be selected for the flotilla. The fact that it's a boat with some history. These ex-Royal Air Force 50-foot refuelers came in at the very end of the war to refuel big flying boats, and then they kept them on as long as the flying boats were in service. We own an interesting boat that just happens to be on the National Historic Ships list as well, so she is probably the only going example of the hulls that were built.
Having lived on Lindsay for 9 years, I got the opportunity to help set up and run the River Thames Boat Project, which is a local charity based on the river at Kingston. I got involved right at the very beginning, supporting the Mayor of Richmond, who wanted to have a community boat on the river that provided both disabled access and environmental education activities. So I worked with a local architect and a marine engineer, and we, from my experience of living on and maintaining this boat, I was able to bring a lot of some practical experience. So between us, we've designed and then I managed the fit out of the Venturer.
I am a volunteer at Teddington Lifeboat Station. It's something that grew out of being familiar with boating anyway, and it's my task as the volunteers rush into the lifeboat station to deliver their first briefing, to say where they're tasked to. And although we do go and rescue people whose engines have failed and they're being swept into a weir, all that sort of thing that you imagine is the roughy-tufty lifeboat sort of thing to do, a lot of our calls involve being the backup to police who, for instance, go to a bridge and there's somebody threatening to jump, and often because we are not with the authority of the police, the lifeboat can be a very calming influence there, so they turn up and they know that we're volunteers, and sometimes that can turn somebody's mind into thinking twice about it and calming down and stuff as well. So yeah, we have a lot of success in that regard, yeah.
Nice and steady. Long and strong, all at the same time.
It's one of the best feelings for sure, when the boat's really moving, you're all in time, you're putting your oar in the water at the same time, you're pulling out at the same time, and you're really shifting. There's nothing quite like it, that sort of feeling of unison, of pulling together. Yeah, it's great fun. The club was started in 2015. We have 2 bases, so obviously we're here in Richmond in the clubhouse, which is our main base, but we also have boats based at the Royal Docks in East London. We have approximately 100 members, so we're a big club. We've got people who are very experienced gig rowers, people who come here as complete novices and grow to love it. For me, it's a connection both to the river, but it's also a reminder of the time I spent living in Cornwall, rowing these boats. And particularly when I first sort of moved to London, finishing that period of my life, starting a new one, it was nice to have that continuity. The rowing was a constant and kind of served as a reminder, and still does, to that part of my life at uni in Cornwall, which I really loved. It is a commitment, and you know, it's nice out there now in the sunshine, going for a row. It's a different story come the winter, wind and rain. Can get pretty rough out there with the tides, fighting against the tides, the strong sort of spring tide. You sort of stop and question sometimes why you're doing it on those cold evenings when it's pitch black. You know, you've had a day at work, but it's all worth it to be able to row where we do in such a privileged position here. It's beautiful at any time of day, in any conditions.
Fixed seat traditional rowing, which is the type of rowing we do, is it's you know, we're not athletes. We come out rowing because we enjoy it. It's a lovely, gentle form of exercise in the air. It's very good for your well-being. But the type of boats and the type of rowing do means that anybody of all shapes, all sizes, all abilities, and you can swap seats, change seats anytime. There's no restrictions.
It started because my husband is a magistrate. You may know that the bench ballistas rowing is a judiciary rowing team, and we're very sure that it's the only one in the world of its kind. I'm an all-season rower, so winter, summer, whatever. I also am now a fully trained cox.
Coaches have invested in training with the British rowing, so they're quite experienced now, and they will design or modify the training depending on the crew's abilities. We may have a crew that are largely made up of newer rowers, so we have the ability to be able to teach and develop people no matter what level they're at.
We are very excited to be part of the flotilla, and of course we're going to be having bunting on our boat. We're going to be having lights, and I think Matt has arranged 300 odd lights that we're going to put around the boat, onto each of the oars, and of course it's going to be wonderful to be rowing in the evening.
And the other thing we do is that we raise funds for local projects. So these are projects in London, southwest London or central London. We try and focus on funding projects that help divert people from crime or promote access to justice. In the 16 years we've been in existence, we've raised 128,000 for charities in and around southwest London.
Well done, everybody. Well done.